Okay, I thank you so much for joining. And it is, by the way, the first webinar we have this year. So my first welcome to you is Happy New Year. I mean, a really, really, really Happy New Year, not like last one. And second, of course, we will continue with the webinars for the time being. We will choose our topics on hoping that this will be interesting for you all. Uh, but hopefully, we also hope that we will have the conference in October this year. It's not yet announced officially. We will do it soon, and we will build, I hope, a good program. And the last message before we start, uh, it has been a difficult years for all of us. For oh, we have also Slovenia here. Hello, hello, hello. And it has been difficult, and we have managed, I must say. Uh, Only a couple of members resigned because they said they have no chance to continue being with us, but all the rest is active and well-being. Now we need more. I must say very honestly, we need more members, and we need your help. So if you like what we do, and you know neighbors from your cities that would, in your opinion, and would be glad to join, we will be more than pleased that you join us, because this is really very important for us, and ask them to join. We need more members, although we have the usual number, but more will be very, very important for all of us. So I'm here to help. If you have some candidate, tell me. I will brief them, and hopefully I will convince them. Uh, Now, coming to the topic of this webinar. So I think we thought that communication from citizen to cities cities to citizens is extremely important, and in reality, uh, the experience of many of you that have joined me in previous discussion told this, that it is difficult, it is important, it is very difficult, and very often it is ineffective, and citizens are not really happy, or even more, they are not even interested in being part of it. Now, because of the pandemic, of course, this has gained a much greater importance for local governments, and expanding the connection with citizens has become really extremely important during the emergency phase. And probably after the pandemic, more relevant even would be to engage citizens in co-design and co-production of new construct of local government services. So all over, this is the reason why I have launched this initiative. Now, we will have four speakers. Please stay on mute if you don't mind, so that we don't have too much noise. Um, Now, we have four speakers. Eric Legal from Issy-les-Moulineaux. Issy-les-Moulineaux, he will introduce the city. It's a city in France, very close to Paris. And the topic he will cover is public communication, how digital technology has strengthened the link with the population, and his experience in Issy-les-Moulineaux. And by the way, he is the general manager of Issy Media, and Issy Media belongs to the city. And this is the organization that is dealing with the medias to connect to the city's citizens. The second one is Ruth Yeoman. I hope I'm pronouncing well your family name. She is fellow of the Kellogg College at the University of Oxford in UK. Now, she will tell us about a very interesting topic, which is very unusual for us. So it will be very interesting to listen to her. It's making meaningful cities, the role of narrative justice. So the basic idea is that while many cities have focused on promoting smart and sustainable cities, they have neglected the need of residents and workers to derive a sense of meaning from the places where they live and work. It's about the right of citizens, residents, and workers to co-create the narratives underpinning rebuilding the urban economy. And these are the two first speakers. Then we will have something new in our webinars, because it's not anymore two presentations, but it will be a single interview that I will run with the two following speakers. One is Francesco Di Costanzo. He is president of PA Social. PA means public administration. This is PA Social is an organization in Italy, a national association of local governments facing the city's communication challenges as a team. And I think it will be very interesting during the interview to understand from him and from the other interviewee, which is Christian Tozolin, who is a social media manager at the municipality of Trieste in Italy. And he takes care of citizen communication since years. I know he has started, I think, many years ago. He will tell us. He has a big experience. It will be also interesting because Christian doesn't like to speak English. He says he's not good enough. So I will do the best I can simultaneous translation. And thank you, Christian. I will do the best I can. So it will not be presentation, it will be a discussion. After that, I will ask to the two other speakers, together with the participants, to associate with us and discuss about what we have talked about. Okay, so the first speaker is now Eric. Eric, if you want to share your presentation online.
Yeah.
And please, it's up to you, and welcome. Thank you, Eric.
Okay, you can see my site here.
Yes, but put it full screen. I don't see it.
I try to do it. Up.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. Okay. So first, thank you very much to invite me to share our experience during this special period. Maybe a few words about my city of Issy-les-Moulineaux. It's like you said, a very close city to Paris. We are a member of the Greater Paris, as you can see, the southwest, with a population on 60,000 inhabitants. Of course, compared to Paris, we are very small, but in the national level, we are at the rank 75, I think, city by population. And what is interesting in our city is we have more jobs than inhabitants, with 72,000. And we have headquarters of Microsoft, Cisco, Orange, Capgemini, SoftBank, a lot of big companies in a digital field. And also we have a population younger than the national average, with a higher education, and a third of them are major or higher intellectual profession. So that means we have a connected population with a great exigence about what we are doing every day. And one thing more we have to know is that we are in the digital transition for the city since a lot of time now. It's more than 25 years, and in France we are considered like one of the most innovative city, at least of the Greater Paris, but also in the national level, because we start very early and we never stop. So even today, for example, since last 1 month now, we were among the first French city to have the 5G for the population. Another thing is Issy-Media. I manage this public company. It's a very specific things in France. We are the only city in France to have this kind of organizations. We are not a public service like in the other cities, but a semi-public company. Like our mother is of course the city, but we are working like the private agency. So that means we are more agile, and it's easier to work with our colleagues or other companies on the city. So This year, as you know, in France at least, it was after you, but on the March 17, it was the first lockdown. It was a very special time for us in communication because at the mid of the month, we are almost finished to prepare the local newspaper of the month following. So this day, what was the situation? So, like everyone, I suppose, we had to change all our way to work. All my team was, for example, in the remote working. We are well connected at home. We have a good connection. We have good material, and all our organization is used to do that online since a lot of time. So it was not a problem of organization for us, but the problem was how to inform daily, maybe instantaneously, the population about the national decision, about the local effects, and what we can do for them during this period. So, of course, the web was the most channel used during this period. Like you can see, during this year, we restored a growth of 40, more than 40% of our unique visitors on the website. And you can see, of course, with some peaks for the first lockdown in March, for the second lockdown in the beginning of November. And the most important was during the mask distribution, because the population was invited to be registered online to have this mask protection. So, of course, it's the same for the social network, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or even LinkedIn. All our online tools recorded a very big growth during this time, and in the same time, we propose during to the population some events online in the cultural field mainly, and that's right, of course. The second objective we have, it's always the same, but during this period, maybe it was most important, is to maintain the social links between the population, between them and us, between the population and the medical staff. And we ask to the children to send us the drawing about just to say thank you to the personnel, the medical staff in the city, and we publish some of them, the most interesting, of course, in the newspaper in April. And it was, of course, very popular because in the same time, it was a good opportunity for the parents to have occupation for the children. Another objective was to compensate the state failures because, as you know, I don't know if you know, I don't know in your different countries, but in France, it's a little bit chaotic with the national decision on the national communication because they change every week the things, and they are not ready, and we didn't have mask protection until the spring, until May or June even. So we create with some volunteers of the city the possibility of a Fab Lab or to produce the protection tools for the medical staff, but also for the shops that are open, and of course for the people in the city administrative welcome. And we distribute a lot of masks. We distribute the mask to the population. It was not the state, so we bought it in different places in Europe or in the Middle East, and we had some gift from our training city in other countries and mainly in China. But it was, of course, an intense period of solidarity because we have also volunteers who take a phone call to the elderly people or to buy furniture and alimentation for these elderly people. So it was also in this that period. It was also very interesting spirit on solidarity between the population. And for me, at the spring, during the springtime, it was a very positive way of solidarity. It's not the same today. One more thing, for me, it was very important to maintain the local newspaper in paper in the mailbox of the population, because of course everyone is not able to go to the internet or to the web, and it's not the same thing. And for the elderly people, mainly, it's important to have more information about what happened in the city, and of course to have practical information about, of course, the situation, but the other thing of the life, because during that time we try to maintain a normal life in some in cultural life. For example, we have a different possibility to have concerts, to have exhibition online, or to have conferences online. So it was interesting, and people appreciate it, because for them it was a demonstration that we are able to maintain the public services at the same level that normal. So we were lucky because, as I said, all our team was in remote working, but we work with our printer or distributor like that normally. So we didn't have problem to change, because of course we had to modify all the newspaper of April, of course, but it was we had, I think, 1 week late compared to the usual time. So, and now since November, so as you know, it's not a lockdown like in UK or like in spring. We are in with the curfew, so we can go now to the shop, not in restaurants, not in bars, but we can have shopping, and we can go to work. Even a lot of us are in remote working mainly. But the most important thing we did during this period was to support the local shop. So we create a special poster like this one. It's a support our local shops. And during the December, in the December in the newsletter, we invited the inhabitants to buy in local shop for the gift for Christmas, for example, or for the meals of the dinner for the end of the year. So it was working. So it was very interesting, because we create also a special platform with some big stakeholder like La Poste, the postal services in France, or so now the shops are able to create their own online shop with a free system, and we create also a special group on the Facebook just to allow the shops to explain to the population they are open or not, or they can have a click and collect system, or they can have a delivery system. So it was very popular, because I think now we have 4,000 citizens registered in this group, and that means the social network was very efficient also during this period to share information between, of course, shops and population, between the city and the citizen, but also between the citizens themselves, because a lot of them ask questions about what is the best way to do that, to have that, to buy that, and it was very very interesting. And in November, we decided to to launch a survey, a large survey in all the mailbox of the city to ask the people what, how can they imagine the city, the post-COVID city tomorrow? Because of course we know that during this period a lot of people rethink about their life, but also about what they want to do, because I don't know how it's in your different countries, but it's in Paris. A lot of Parisians now have a dream to have a house outside of Paris with a garden, and they want to have more time with the family, but not 100 remote working. So they are thinking about to change the way they live today. So we ask a simple question to the population: is what for you are the priorities we have to work during the following months or on year? And it was very popular because we receive 20% of answer from the household. So it's a very good result. And that means the people need to express something after this period, or what they want for the future. So a positive thing is that we have a very optimistic population about the future of our city. So it is very important, because if we have the same survey in the national level, we have about 30%, only 30% of French people are optimistic about the future of the country. So, as you can see, in Issy-les-Moulineaux, it's about 90% of the people who are optimistic. So that's good. That means we were able to keep a special spirit, not too dramatic, and because we had the shops, we had people, we had the companies also, and we tried today, for example, to help the young people to find jobs during the next month. But the most interesting thing is to see that the most important priorities for the population is about the environmental transition. So it's logical, because we understood this year that our countries are very fragile because just a virus. So we can imagine what could happen if the climate change is really hard, like some experts are saying. So it's very interesting to see, for example, that a large majority, more than 70%, want more biodiversity in the city, more vegetalization, more trees, more gardens. So also more garden, because they want, of course, to breathe differently, but also to have more concrete thing about the renovation of building, about the renewable energies, etc., etc. For us, it's important thing, because Issy-les-Moulineaux is not led by the Green Party, but by a coalition of right, center right, and I don't know how to say that, and the Macron party. But since a lot of time also, we work on environmental things. At the same time, we work on the digital transition, because we work about the smart cities, about the smart grid, about the smart mobility, about smart building. So it's the same thing for us. And for it, our conviction is that what we did for the digital transition will be a strength for us for the environmental transition, because we will have the tools to understand how to how to do and to evaluate what we do and to be more efficient. At least it's what we hope. So this is what we did during this period in my city. I suppose it was the same in a lot of cities around the world. But I think the digital technology helped us a lot to maintain this link with the population.
Thank you, Eric. Congratulations. So we will have the debate at the end, but meanwhile, please put your question on the chat. There is one question, Eric, right away. The question is, can we have the full set of alternatives proposed in the questionnaire to the citizens about the priorities? Or is it was an open proposal? How is it? Do you have a full list of questions or ask people to propose their priorities?
Yes, we have a full list of questions on different topics. There's also about shops, so about leisure, culture, or something. You can find it, but of course in French, huh? on the website, on our website, ici.com.
Okay, could you maybe you after it you can send me the link so that I will distribute. Okay.
Okay.
Merci.
Okay.
So
to stop.
Our next
I will stop the sharing. Okay.
Excellent. Thank you. So next speaker is Ruth Yeoman, and please, Ruth, the stage is yours. You can introduce yourself better than I do, so please don't hesitate.
Hello, everybody. I'm just sharing my screen with you.
It's coming. Okay, we have it. I see Fisco. Okay, full screen. Got it.
You got it. That's wonderful. Thank you very much indeed. Delighted to be with you all today. That was a really fascinating presentation. Thank you very much. And thank you to Giorgio for inviting me to speak on this topic of making meaningful cities and the connection to public communications. So in 1968 speech to the University of Kansas, Robert Kennedy remarked that when we prioritize GDP, we leave out most of the things that make our lives worth living, including meaning and purpose. And he said that it's just not enough to address material poverty. We also need to confront the poverty of satisfaction, of purpose and dignity that affects all of us. And in reflecting upon the many challenges facing cities today, it seems more important than ever that we should try to remedy this blindness. And so my aim here today is to introduce you to the idea of the meaningful city as a tool for harnessing ethical resources into public communications for sustainable urban development. So my core question is, how can we integrate the social and ethical into smart and sustainable urban transitions? And I'm going to be looking at the importance of narratives that express our need for meaning. I argue that everyone needs to be involved in co-creating the meanings and narratives that shape how they act and how they lead their lives. And this requires narrative justice in sustainable urban development. So we all know that during the COVID-19 pandemic, cities have come to the forefront. And in a 2020 OECD webinar on city responses, it highlighted the importance of the Leipzig Charter to address climate change, social fragmentation, digitalization, and new economics. And participants identified a various set of factors in successful COVID-19 responses, including, for example, accelerating to new urban paradigms, investing in public services, the importance of city leadership and of international city networks. And this includes the role of the Chief Resilience Officer in encouraging civic involvement and extending social solidarity. And going forward, the participants identified the need for collaborative city governance that connects to local placemaking and which goes beyond city boundaries to link cities to city regions and to try to overcome the rural and urban divide. So this is all very promising, but I think there's something which is missing from this discussion, which I call the ethical wealth of cities, or those intangible assets of meanings, values, and narratives that motivate people to join together into collective action. And I think that city administrators and leaders need to focus not only on nuts and bolts, so the kind of technical aspects of embodied carbon in supply chains, for example, but also hearts and minds. So, for example, by encouraging more varied meanings and narratives that connect to what people consider to be important in their lives. A narrative justice approach to public communications would recognise that meanings are diverse and reflect different ways of experiencing the city. And in a citizen-led study of 3 East London neighbourhoods, Moore and Woodcraft found that local meanings of what does it mean for everyone to prosper diverged from standard economic models of material prosperity and placed far greater emphasis on belonging, voice, and relationships. And such meanings have a powerful potential to be activated for mobilising local collective action and for informing city-level governance. So city meaning resources, such as cultural assets, can be used for more social objectives that go beyond encouraging inward investment or promoting tourism. They can be used to create solidarity narratives, starting by auditing and curating the diverse meanings that inform the culture and character of the city. And these can be used at a strategic level to define the collective purpose of the city that frames meaningful lives and work. Public policy and economics tends to neglect our human need for meaning. Meanwhile, impacts from technological shifts and globalization seem to be producing a frustration with the way we live. And this is perhaps expressed in what we see in a rising sense of alienation, a loss of meaning and purpose for some people, which is afflicting our politics and our social fabric. As part of a governance regime, meaningfulness can sensitize city administrators to how people actually experience their lives. And the ethical value of meaningfulness plays an important role in practical reasoning regarding what we ought to do. Meaningfulness is a moral structure. It can be described and institutionalized. It also provides a reflective standpoint in meaning making, especially the meaning making that has to happen in contentious and problematic situations. As an ethical practice, meaningfulness can be designed into organizations and systems to create sustainable, resilient, and inclusive models of how to live together in the city. So we all know now that post-COVID, the call is to build back better. And this can be assisted by mobilizing meanings into narratives that support placemaking and incorporating those meanings into governance. And that can help us with the practical reasoning which I've identified around what we ought to do together to create the kind of environments in which everybody can live decent, humane, and meaningful lives. Viktor Frankl famously called our human need for meaningfulness the will to meaning. And this is shown in individual psychology to be a fundamental human drive and actually very difficult to eliminate. The philosopher Susan Wolf makes meaningfulness a distinct moral value, not just a psychological experience. And she coins this rather useful phrase that meaningfulness arises when subjective attraction meets objective attractiveness. In other words, people experience meaningfulness when they're actively involved with things of independent value and moral significance, such as, for example, ideas, activities, people, animals, places, ecosystems, organizations, the list that goes on, and these things which are also emotionally engaging. I use this idea of the moral value of meaningfulness in my own research when I think about collective action as being structured by autonomy, freedom, and dignity, directed towards taking care of things which have independent value and moral significance, and experienced by us as emotionally engaging and worthwhile. From the meaning in life literature, we know there's a connection between meaningfulness and the diversity of meaning sources which orientate us beyond the self. and generativity, care and significance are especially important for helping us to integrate different sources of meaning into a meaningful life. Cities, of course, provide a very rich variety of meaning sources, but city structures, processes and institutions can also hinder the search for meaning. They can get in the way and make it more difficult for people to integrate productive sources of meaning into their work and into their lives. Not only do we need favourable structures which help us to integrate different sources of meaning, but we also need capabilities. When we accept responsibilities to look after, to steward, to repair and maintain those things that matter to us, we need to develop the skills and the knowledge to do so. And we also need to evaluate how well we are doing in caring for those things which make our lives meaningful, and to produce measures that go beyond GDP. You'll all be very well aware now that the talk everywhere is how to create resilient systems, places and people. And there's an important connection between resilience and meaningfulness. Resilience is generally understood to be the ability to absorb change and disturbance, to rebound from adversity. But resilience can also be learnt and developed. And collective resilience and learning about collective resilience is rooted in the shared capacity for meaning making. And we know from psychological studies that individuals with a sense of life being meaningful are better equipped to respond when confronted with adversity. They're more able to learn the skills of resilience. Linning-Leuker identifies 3 factors for building resilience in the face of massive external uncertainty. First of all, adaptive business models with the capacity for rapid innovation. Second of all, resilient global supply chains. And thirdly, building the strength of employees. And I extend this to all of the various stakeholders of the organisation and of the city. And building the strength of people includes provisioning them with the resources that they need for life meaning. And this extends, I think, to voice and a sense of efficacy, a sense of being able to influence the shape of their lives and the circumstances in which they find themselves. So individual and collective resilience, which is grounded in life meaning, needs meaning sources. For example, an ethic of care offers a way to enlarge our imaginations of our interwovenness with other living beings and natural systems. And Jean Liedtke says that care concentrates on our capacity to respond to and enact responsibility towards others, to be able to share meanings and find ways of being together in the world. And this source of meaning in life could become a core element of resilient urban systems if it's taken up into public communications and public policy making. Narratives influence our behaviour. They also provide a social basis for people who hold to different values to work together on shared problems. But to be inclusive collective resilience needs everyone to be involved in narrative formation. Meanings are the fuel for the creation, augmentation and dissemination of narratives. And the economist Robert Shiller uses the metaphor of contagions and epidemics to describe the evolution of narratives. But I think this leaves out the agency and power of meaning makers in the co-construction of those narratives. It also doesn't really offer us a way to evaluate narratives and to promote better narratives, especially for sustainable transitions. So, for example, urgency narratives that rely upon war metaphors in climate change could stimulate insider-outsider categories, the kinds of categories that are already so very unhelpful in political discourse. And I think that we need rather alternative narratives based upon collaboration, care and earth stewardship. However, in writing about the nuclear age, Gunther Anders in Language and End Times said that ordinary language was not made for what is enormous. And it certainly is the case that climate change is one of the most enormous problems that we have got to face. He asks whether it's possible for us to create a language that will help us to become fully sensitized to our shared predicament. We need to extend language to include art, music, theatre, and other forms of public communication. We also need to be aware that narratives are easily corrupted. We should be careful what narratives and narrators we legitimate, permitting them authority to shape our lives. A 2018 Royal Society study of narratives and technology argues that human behaviour and flourishing are affected by the narrative ecosystem of artificial intelligence. However, narrative formation often excludes marginalised groups and individuals from authoring narratives or having their own narratives taken up as the accepted version. And depriving narrative formation of the full spectrum of meaning makers has very real-world effects. So, for example, recruitment AIs that are coded to reflect conventional models of success freeze our world into existing frames of exclusion. So we need to institute narrative justice that includes the whole range of meaning makers and helps those meaning makers to access the technological, communicative and ethical assets of the city. So how do we apply these insights to cities? Smart and sustainable city initiatives promise to improve lives through environmental respect, technological innovation and giving citizens a voice. But we all know very well that this is not an easy process at all. There are tensions between smart and sustainable city goals and the needs and life aspirations of different city people. And motivating successful innovation means allowing people to contribute to their different perspectives and meanings, to be able to interact with data, technology and architecture, and to become involved in co-design. Participation not only provides the social basis for embedding innovation, but also provides the context in which we can help one another to create meaningful lives. You're going to have all of these slides, but I'm just going to summarise here some of the meaning-making resources for co-creating strategic city meaning systems that could be incorporated into urban public communications. And one of the most important, I think, is to create a moral purpose for the city that supports the life value of human, animals, and the natural world. And it's the active working and contributing of people which creates meaningfulness and creates that life value. In this process model of the meaningful city, the two key elements of meaningfulness that I mentioned earlier on, objective worth and subjective attachment, are integrated by citizens who are confident in speaking up about what matters to them and who can exercise capabilities for taking care of those things. And I think this means creating forms of participation that involve them in processes of discovering, curating, interpreting, and communicating meanings. And in this task, the associational fabric is particularly important. Non-inclusive organisations make some of us more vulnerable than others to the harms which come with a loss of meaning. There are some important power questions here, such as who gets to make meanings? How do they use them? And does this give rise to some people being able to achieve meaningful lives at the expense of others? So there's a core question here which is embedded in this process. Can we design city organisations, structures and places so that they can help as many people as possible to experience meaningfulness? With this question in mind, colleagues and I have been looking at city projects to see where we might find emerging architectures for meaningfulness. One of the cases that we looked at is the King's Cross site in London. And King's Cross is a distinctive example of private enterprise helping to produce public benefits, but where the challenge lies in handing off to future generations. The challenge basically is one of governance. In a set of public sector-led initiatives, Finnish cities are grappling with developing the ability of citizens to participate. In both of these cases, new sources of meanings are being created, as well as providing people with new opportunities to contribute to the things that matter to them. So what can we learn from such examples for making meaningful cities? First of all, urban design must include the dual movement of governing meanings and mobilising meanings. We need narratives that create enduring and compelling purpose, involving multiple perspectives and interpretations of meanings that help us with social solidarity. And this is helped by auditing meaning sources very consciously. These provide communicative data for co-constructing legitimate and attractive narratives. But those viable narratives must be tied to ways in which people can join together to address urgent problems that matter to them. We need to mobilize collective action around those narratives. Maintaining the long-term connection between local collective action and city-level purpose depends upon having an integrated associational fabric, or those private, public and civic organisations that can help to mediate between citizens and public administration. And the whole needs to be held together and orchestrated by collaborative governance regimes. Finally, I think there's a vital link here between meaningfulness and human civilization. And Jane Jacobs quotes Oliver Wendell Holmes, who connects civilization, complexity, and the experience of a richer, fuller life. What we can learn from this is that sustainability may depend upon investing in shared narratives that encourage each of us to take up our responsibilities as stewards of the earth, and at the same time to be able to craft meaningful lives in solidaristic relationships with one another. And in this effort, cities play a leading role. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ruth. There is a question. I will anticipate it together with my question, and we'll keep it for the debate at the end, if you agree. So the question is from Martin Ferguson. He's also from UK. Thank you, Ruth, for your thoughtful presentation. How would you see the alignment of your thesis on the importance of meaningful places with the donut economics framework advocated by Kate Raworth? And the question for me is, how can you apply these really fascinating ideas in the real world of cities, municipalities, where some special people like Eric is doing in France, and how you will see in Italy, many cities are doing, but in general, who are the people in the administration that can orchestrate such a movement? So please keep it for later, and we go now to the next step. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it will not be the two speakers are from Italy. One is Francesco from the National Association PA Public Administration Social that has a special mission. And the other one is Christian Tosolin from the city of Trieste. He is the social media manager of the city. The same as with Eric, there are very few, I would say, I know one in Italy who is Christian, who is having a specific official task, who is social media manager. But at the same time, many are engaged in this field, as I will explain. Now, we will run it as an interview, so the two together we will have a sequence of question and answer and discussions among us. I will make the simultaneous translation for Christian from Italian into English. I hope I will be good enough. So I will start now by asking Francesco to talk about his organization and give us an overview about the mission and the way PA Social works. Please, Francesco.
Yes, thank you very much, Giorgio. Do you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Giorgio, and all to this invitation. It's a pleasure. PA Social, that is, as you said, Public Administration Social, is the first Italian association dedicated to the digital communication and journalism. We start in 2017, so we are a young association, the first in Italy of this genre, and we work on new communication. So the use of web, social network, chat, artificial intelligence for the public services. So as Christian can say, we work to help municipalities, government, regions, Chamber of Commerce, museums, and all public services to give to citizens a good communication, a dialogue, a way to have a direct relationship. And also during this emergency, the pandemic emergency, we have a lot of work to give to citizens the right information in a difficult moments. So the work is very large, but in general, we work on professional training, of dissemination, events on these themes of public communication. And we have a big network in all Italy with journalists, experts for communication and digital, and also all the public administration and also utilities on public services.
Thank you, Francesco. I switch now to a question to Christian. So Christian, also Eric mentioned before about France that in France, the communication, especially during the pandemic, was a little bit confusing. I would even say very confusing because things change every day and et cetera, et cetera. I think you mentioned, Christian, that also in Italy, it could be a jungle. Can you tell us something about this jungle, your experiences in general in managing the public communication and how you manage it? Please, Christian.
Ok, buonasera a tutti, grazie Giorgio, spero che mi sentiate, io sento molto male ma ci siamo, ok, perfetto.
Sì, ok.
Sì, ricollegandomi a quello che ha detto Francesco poc'anzi, in Italia effettivamente c'è e c'è stata e ci continua un po' a essere una giungla sul fronte della comunicazione, proprio nel senso che un po' tutti si muovono in maniera non coordinata e quindi grazie. Ok.
So he's saying that also in Italy there is a lot of confusion because the public communication is coming from very different sources which are not coordinated. Please continue.
Il grande vantaggio di Pia Social, dell'associazione Pia Social, è stato proprio quello di riuscire a fornire un coordinamento nazionale e poi declinato sui territori.
So the advantage of being part of Pia Social is that the Pia Social is providing order and coordination of all this mess of communication across Italy, so that it goes from the top up down to the local level.
Spesso ci è capitato, soprattutto durante questa pandemia, di ricevere informazioni discordanti, dissimili, e quindi appoggiandosi a questa grande rete che è Pia Social, noi comunicatori locali di comuni, di regioni, siamo riusciti a ottenere la documentazione effettiva, quella veritiera, diciamo.
So during the pandemic, the different sources of communication were so unconnected that it was very difficult for at local level to assemble the right information. So thanks to Pia Social, they could really get the right documentation and the final documentation to communicate to the citizens.
Su questo non c'è un coordinamento a livello di governo centrale, nel senso che ogni ministero ha i propri comunicatori e alle volte in qualche modo c'è anche una discordanza a livello di informazione. Ecco, avere una comunicazione coordinata e strutturata grazie proprio all'associazione Pia Social e ai propri associati sia a livello centrale che sui territori, ci ha permesso di fare una comunicazione sicuramente migliore nei confronti dei cittadini.
So each ministry in Italy has its own communication organization. They are not coordinated, as we said before, and because of that, it was impossible at local level to understand what was right and what was wrong, and so it was the working together as a team at national level, at local, but at national level, helped in having a correct communication to citizens. Thank you. Now, so the next question is about I would like to ask Christian the following. You are communicating to citizens, right? So are they your customers? Who is your customer? You are working in a public administration. Are you connected to the top level of the political level of the administration, or who are your customers? Who are referring to your work? Please.
Okay. La mia clientela effettivamente è quella diretta dei cittadini a cui ci rivolgiamo. La nostra comunicazione è una comunicazione che va in parallelo con la comunicazione politica, ma è prettamente una comunicazione istituzionale, si rivolge a 360 gradi a tutti i cittadini.
So his customers are the citizens. In parallel, there is the communication of the politicians, which is in parallel, not the same. So the communication to citizens he's managing is official, but it is not political. It addresses all levels of citizens and all kind of citizens. Is it affected by the political drive? I mean, in your administration, as in any administration, I know that there are changing in the top level political drive. Does it affect the way you communicate to citizens?
Ma in questo caso è fondamentale riuscire a parlare, ovviamente, e a tenere un colloquio e un rapporto costante con la parte politica, ma va spiegato che ovviamente la parte politica può e deve, secondo me, avere dei propri canali di contatto diretto con i cittadini, ma che non devono in qualche modo diventare la fotocopia del canale istituzionale. Questi due canali alle volte arrivano a convergere, questi due binari si incontrano, perché ovviamente un sindaco, un amministratore può parlare anche tramite i canali istituzionali, ma non possono essere la copia uno dell'altro.
So what Christian is saying is that the two channels are cooperate together, but in reality, the political channel communication to citizens from the politicians is not and should not be mixed with the other channel that he's managing. And sometimes it happens that politicians use also the institutional channel to connect to citizens, but it should not be driven by political meaning. It is completely different. So, Francesco, can you comment a little bit more about how you manage and how it works in your organization? How the national level is linked to the local level, and how you can coordinate all that?
Yes, it's very simple. We have a lot of chat on WhatsApp, on Telegram, on various instruments, digital instruments, in which we collaborate from the national association and the local regional association to have materials, informations, and we have a continuous exchange of these from national to local and from local to national, because we have a lot of best practice from the local government, like Christian and Trieste, but we have a very big network of best practice. I don't know this, but OCSE said us that we are the first in the world to have a big network of best practice on digital communication like this. So it's a very good thing for us, but for citizens is good because we can collaborate very fast to give information, to fight disinformation, and to give digital services to the citizens.
You mentioned that you are providing education. What does it mean? What kind of education you provide to the cities, to the local managers of communication?
Now, when I said we have a lot of experience and activity on professional training on digital communication. So we work to use social network, chat, digital platform in general with quality, with a professional way. When we start, we are working on the quantity of account of profiles on social network. Now we work on the quality. So we have to stay on social network, but we have to have a good behavior on social network. So we work on this with a lot of professional training. We have a digital lab. We have various tours with social network, with Facebook, with Google. We have a lot of way of professional training.
Thank you. Meanwhile, we are getting a lot of questions. I ask you immediately, as it is an interview, for Christian, do you also get feedback from your citizens, or is it just a one-way communication? But I add to this, how many citizens in Trieste are linked to your communication, and what is the activity of it?
Allora, il presupposto di utilizzare i canali social è proprio quello di una comunicazione bidirezionale. Quindi partiamo da questa posizione. La scelta di aprire dei canali social deve essere ovviamente legata ad un credo di una pubblica amministrazione, che è quello di dare voce al cittadino, se no non ci sarebbe un senso.
So the purpose of his organization and of this his communication is, of course, to be a two-way communication, and so it must be clear that the citizens are part of it, and that they are exchanging continuously information. So can you give us some numbers of how many you have connected to you? What is the traffic? How big is the city? How many inhabitants you have in Trieste? Quanti abitanti?
Allora, Trieste ha 220.000 abitanti circa. Di questi 220.000, una buona parte, una metà, diciamo, circa 100.000 abitanti, ci leggono settimanalmente attraverso i vari canali social, anche di più, devo dire la verità. Direi che anche qui forse c'è da porre l'attenzione al fatto che Trieste è una città molto anziana, con un'età molto avanzata, ma molte persone che ci seguono, ad esempio su Facebook, sono over 50, over 60.
Thank you. So Trieste is a city of 220,000 inhabitants, and he gets every week about 100,000 interaction with the citizens, and it must be so it's more or less half of the population, and it must be considered that Trieste is a city with a very, very old population. I mean, most of the citizens are elderly people, But in reality, he gets a lot of interaction also from elderly people. So apparently, this is not only to young people, but more even to less young people. Thank you. And by the way, I'm asking now to Francesco, and how many of cities are connected to your network in Italy?
Okay, we are 700 of members in PS Social. I think 100 of cities we have in PS Social. Also like structures, also like singular professional journalists or communicators that are in the cities, that works in the cities.
Now, I have a question from both of you, Francesco and also Christian. How are you managing the fake news?
Okay, I think that for fake news, disinformation, we can fight it with, I don't know, a law or a sensibilization of the social companies to have a strong work on it. But I think that to fight fake news, we need a strong public communication. So if we have a strong public communication, a public communication that can manage in a right way the digital platforms, we can fight to the fake news.
You have your experience?
Su questo aggiungo che la presenza delle pubbliche amministrazioni sui social media è andata a bilanciare quella che è la comunicazione anche di fake news, per cui i cittadini trovano un punto di riferimento forte, come diceva Francesco, nella pubblica amministrazione, e sanno che tutte le conversazioni, che tutte le notizie che arrivano sono notizie ufficiali, affidabili, autorevoli.
Thank you. So he says that in reality, his channel is considered a very reliable channel, and citizens go to his channel to have the right news, while the fake news are out, and so he's considered a reliable source of information versus the fake news which are outside.
Yes, if the official sources are strong also on digital platforms, for the citizens is more simple to avoid the fake news.
Excellent. Now, one question to you, Francesco. You mentioned that your is an association, a non-profit association. How do you get the funding to run such a big organization, of such a big network of cities and interaction and communication? What are the sources of funding?
Okay, no, we have a very simple and little price for the annual, I don't know, as I said, iscrizione annuale.
Membership.
Okay, annual membership that are 20 euros, so a very little price, but we work with a lot of partners, public and private, to work on events, on appointments of professional training, as I said, on publication. So we have a lot of books on these arguments, so on digital communication. So the more important part of the economic of PS Social is from the partners, and also on membership, but as I said, is a little price.
Thank you. Now, a question to Christian. You told me that before that you are the coordinator, not only the coordinator in Trieste, but also of the whole region around Trieste. So Trieste is a medium-sized cities. There is one or two more in the same region of the same size, and then there are a lot of smaller ones. How do you work? Do you support the smaller ones, and how do you work together?
Allora, il primo passo è stato quello di mettere insieme tutti i comunicatori delle pubbliche amministrazioni regionali e trovare anche delle persone come riferimento, perché soprattutto negli enti più piccoli è difficile riuscire a trovare una persona come riferimento della comunicazione.
So the first step has been to identify and put together the right persons that are in each municipality are taking care of communication, which has not been very easy because they might be existing more or less in the bigger cities, but not in the smaller ones. And so the first has been identifying who are the communicators. Secondo?
Dopo aver fatto questo lavoro e quindi aver trovato i riferimenti, abbiamo messo in piedi attraverso delle chat, attraverso un gruppo Facebook, un gruppo di coordinamento a livello regionale che permettesse di diffondere quelle che erano sia le buone pratiche che poi tutte le informazioni che ci arrivano anche dal coordinamento nazionale.
So once he has identified in his own region all the contact points, he's now managing together with Facebook and with the chat the diffusion and verification of all the information that can be spread all around the region through even the smaller city.
Una parte interessante è stata il fatto che quando più di un amministratore ha visto che c'era questo tipo di attività o ha sentito che c'era questo tipo di attività, quando parlo di amministratori ovviamente parlo di sindaci, assessori, consiglieri comunali, sono stati loro stessi a contattarci per fare in modo di poter rientrare anche loro in questo gruppo e facendo così riuscire a coordinare proprio la comunicazione su tutto il territorio. In modo
So what is interesting that once this network has been put in place, many of the mayors or deputy mayors in those smaller cities have contacted Christian to understand how they could participate in the network to make it work properly also in their own city.
Soprattutto nei comuni più piccoli, dove spesso la figura del sindaco, dell'amministratore locale in qualche modo rappresenta anche la comunicazione di quel comune, perché mancano i dipendenti proprio all'interno del comune, c'è un numero esiguo di dipendenti.
Yes, this is especially important for the smaller cities where there are very few employees in the city, and so it is important that they belong to a network to share everything. Now, a last question. Christian is a social media manager in Trieste. How many social media managers there are in Italy, Francesco?
Christian is very lucky because he's the first social media manager in Italy that is recognized. That is a recognized figure, but in Italy the social media manager is not with a law a recognized figure. So we are working with the Ministry of Public Administration on a new law because our goal is to make this work that we are talking about today, this work on public digital communication, the normality of our public administration. To reach this goal, we have to recognize the dedicated professional figures like the social media managers. So we are working on a new law with some important points like a digital turning point on public administration, recognize this figure of social media manager, but not only, we have video maker, design and other digital important professional figure, and on a communication room that is a new organization model of work of the public communication that integrated journalists, communicator, experts, social media manager with the aim of the public services. So it's not simple. The last law is 20 years ago, of 20 years ago, so we have to work a lot, but I hope that this year is the right one to have the new law.
And now I ask a last question to Christian. Inside the municipality of Trieste, are you working somehow alone, or are you fully integrated in a teamwork?
Allora, sono integrato in un team, coordino un team di persone, perché per fare la comunicazione di un ente medio-grande come può essere il comune di Trieste o altri comuni è necessario far parte di un team. Ci deve essere però una persona che in qualche modo coordina e prende delle decisioni. La fortuna che ho avuto io, oltre a quella che ha detto Francesco, di avere una nomina a social media manager, è stata quella di avere dei dirigenti e degli amministratori lungimiranti e che mi hanno dato la sufficiente autonomia per poter fare questo tipo di lavoro.
So in Trieste there is in reality a team that works together under the coordination of Christian, and he has been very lucky that not only he has been appointed as the social media manager, the first one in Italy, which was not really usual years ago, but also that he's get the confidence and the full acceptance of the different elements of the organization at managing at political level, so that in reality he's recognized as being somehow the leader of this team and orchestrating the communication of the city in this way. Okay, I think I have tried. I hope you were not too much lost in my translation. I'm remembering the title of the film, Lost in Translation, if you remember it. Okay, thank you so much. Now we go to the questions now. So I already mentioned some questions that arrived to Eric and to Christian. And to you, do you want to start, Ruth, with the two questions? You mean the donut one, and then I will, if you want, I can repeat them.
The donut question, Kate Raworth's work on the donut economy. Yes, indeed. I mean, there are going to be extremely important connections, aren't there, between that strategic framework and the possibility of people finding a sense of meaning and purpose in life and work because of their engagement in that strategic framework. However, I would say that any kind of strategic framework, whether it's the donut economy, the circular economy, or whatever other interpretation of sustainable transitions we want to go for, every strategic framework needs translation to the local level, and it needs to show that it's going to have some impact upon people's lives. And I think then that piece, which I've tried to introduce to you, of meaning making, the co-creation of narratives, but to do all of that within an ethical framework so that we can pick out the best kinds of narratives in order to achieve the outcomes that they want, that meaning making has a really important role in ensuring that that translation process happens. And it also has a very important role, of course, in augmentation of the best kinds of meanings that we want, in the transmission of those meanings, and also to weed out the meanings that we don't want, the ones which are going to be harmful. So I see a very important role for meaning making to play in strategic frameworks like the donut economy that can make them really effective and something real in people's lives. So that was the first question, I think. And then there was another one, wasn't there, about who are the communicators and who gets to do this? That was George.
Let me phrase it a little bit better than I did. my question is really the following. Yes, who are the communicators? I would even say more. From your presentation, I got a real open view on the life of people inside the city, right? Now, this is a very sophisticated view, I would say. Not because it's sophisticated by itself. Everybody can agree that this is very important, but who in the administration is capable to translate that into real projects and frame and plans and strategies? I think in this session we had some speakers like Eric, Christian, and Francesco that probably are the best ones to manage it. But how many of these exist in reality?
Well, a very important question, and I can't speak for all public administrations. But clearly, if it's going to be thought about as a strategic initiative and something which is valuable for public administration, then the roles and the practices need to be created if they're not there already. And perhaps one of the ways in which we can think about this, particularly for public administrations where there is a shortage of this type of expertise, is first of all thinking about putting together teams of people. So those people who already have some aspect of it in their roles, maybe they're working at a strategic level, maybe they're working at the community level, but bringing those people together who have it as part of their role and equipping them and upskilling them, giving them the kind of collective capabilities that they need. And then also connecting those teams to administrations in other cities that do have that expertise, who have already maybe got it built up, and who can then help those smaller teams, those new teams, to actually develop the relevant kinds of practices. So in one sense, it's a simple answer to the question is, who are the communicators? All of us are the communicators, but then it's also complex because it's saying, well, to have that kind of sense in which we are all the communicators, we need expert coordinators. We need those people who feel able to work with these sorts of ideas. Perhaps I should just link it to the question that there was on technology and social networks, which of course is a really important one. And when I was thinking about that, I was thinking that actually all of this is difficult to do without there being a foundation of social trust and maybe even a sense of fairness. And one of the reasons perhaps why we have got ourselves into such a mess in terms of public communications is that there are no trusted figures. There are no people who are actually representing the interests of all of us who are communicators, who can connect us to those experts in public administration, whether they're learning the area or whether they are already expert coordinators of public administration. And so those linking figures, those boundary figures, those trusted figures who can help to mediate between the different levels in the system, I think are really important, and we should find them, and we should ask them to help public administrators to build social trust and a sense of fairness. And technology is important here, but I'd like to think also about technology in the sense of thinking fast and thinking slow. Some of you may know this work that's been done. And I think that we are in real danger of just thinking that all of our public communications is channeled through thinking fast type tools such as social media, and we need to slow it down, and we need to find ways of having discourse with one another that gets us into a reflective mode. And I'm thinking here of some of the ways in which we might bring in citizen juries or deliberation days, or ways in which citizens can be invited to have a discourse over really complex matters to do with climate change, but other issues and challenges with the city. And we could actually have a mixed methods approach to public communications where we use social media, but we also try to slow all that down so that people can actually have a longer conversation with one another. And I would actually say a little bit like the jury system in the UK. I'm not sure how the jury system works elsewhere. We have a kind of rota, and we pick citizens out by lot. And once they are picked out by lot, we require them to participate.
Thank you. I have another question, but maybe there are other questions from the floor. Any other question from anybody participating here? Okay, I ask the question then. The question is the following. This is, I understand your answer, which I share, by the way, of course, but I still have doubts. Like in UK, in all other countries, there are the big cities, the medium cities. Somehow the medium cities can do better than the big ones sometimes. But however, you mentioned two examples, one from King's Cross and the other one from Finland, which are particular. How can we imagine that such a meaningful communication, together with the other hints we get from the other speakers, can become spread all over the country? Is it a national association, how the same as or similar to the one, the PA Social that Francesco is running, going to help in doing that? Because otherwise it will become a sort of elitarian kind of, what do you think, Ruth?
Well, if there was some kind of national orchestration, that would be extremely interesting and valuable, because if we're thinking about meaningfulness and meaning sources, these escalate up right from the level of the individual through to the collective, through to the city, and right up to the national level. You think about the national level, there is a meaning system that could describe the Italian context. And it could describe the Italian context in the context of your membership of the European Union. Sadly, in the UK, not for us at the moment, maybe in the future. But if there was some kind of a national effort to say, well, what we would do is to consciously look at all of those positive meanings that we have as a nation, that describe how we see ourselves, that describe the future that we see before us, that describe how we need to rebuild back better, green, inclusive, sustainable, whatever, then that might actually help the cities, and particularly the smaller ones, to use that as a resource. I mean, I've tended to focus on cities in my work because they are particular, because they have often very quite unique characteristics that describe the culture, the history, the ways in which the city sees itself. And I think that those are extremely important because they bring people's lives closer to something which they can attach themselves to. It's closer to them in many ways than some of these larger institutional frameworks that they've got become alienated from. But there's no reason why there couldn't be a national initiative to say, well, we will explore what our meaning system is, and we will promote that as a resource that lower levels of organization can draw upon in order to create their own sense of meaning and purpose at a city level or an organizational level, and how that might connect to the lives that people are leading. So I'm not exactly answering your question, because how that would actually be done in terms of some kind of administrative focus, it would depend. It would depend on what there is already, because you've got to find a way of legitimating it and making it something which is attractive and viable, and that people themselves can say, yeah, this makes sense to us. And then the processes for doing that would need to be designed particularly for each context and the particular kinds of administrative tools and techniques that it has at its disposal.
Many thanks. So if there is no other question, any other question? No. So many thanks to Ruth, to Eric, to Francesco, and to Christian for their great contribution. I hope everybody liked the discussion. We will, as usual, make a report of this webinar, and we will you will get it, and we will use the presentation you sent us to publish everything online. We have recorded the whole session. The recording will be also online and open to anybody for use. So thanks a lot, and again, and well, let's meet on the next webinar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.